One thing that's always interesting to watch people on the left squirm around is asking, oh, okay, so you don't think it's fair to racially stereotype people when you get on the bus. What do you say to women that have been battered or abused by men who feel unsafe around men? Shouldn't we also be criticizing them for their decisions also? Which is a harder one if you're on the left, depending on how you view it all to navigate, especially depending on how woke you act. Why would you go with the, who cares about this guy and his dead family? I feel like why would you, that's like the only road that you shouldn't go. I don't know.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. And what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
That's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
I mean, if we want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions, and then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, "Oh, it's not very funny, mate. Me mum," and it's like, shut up. Like, you know.
Months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the lines should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him at all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on...
Dude, I would be the fucking president of the goddamn United States if I was a fucking conservative. These guys are shameless.
This Fuentes guy, and never challenged him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show and you could ask him questions about that.
The truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining, and he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis that I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform, and Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes.
What did you think of the Fuentes interview? Well, considering that I'm 2 minutes and 23 seconds into it, I don't really have many developed thoughts on it yet. Faithless, but thank you for asking.
Welcome to Uncensored.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk, as we prepared for this, in exchanges with people and on your show, saying if you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe, or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you know, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, you know, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all,
just as a heads up, and I know we got mind-fucked during the whole crypto, whatever, Nazi fascist bullshit because of losers online. This is not how politics works. Stop putting he's right in chat. That's not true. Nobody is a crypto dude. It's not like people like Hitler. He loves the Jews. What? Oh my God, the Holocaust. Donald Trump. Oh, he's super pro-immigration. What? He's deporting everybody. Nobody does this. They have a top secret. You know why nobody does this? Because if you got elected and you changed 180 degrees, all of your fan base would abandon you, okay? You can't get a whole fan group of people, a whole follower group politically, and then change all of your views as soon as you get political power. I don't understand. It's such a stupid, you guys did this, even my chat did this, and I'm so disappointed in you guys. Did this a lot when it came to the Sam Hyde stuff, where you guys were always like, oh, he's just joking, or he's being ironic. No, what do you mean just joking, or just being ironic? It's like saying like, oh, that guy's racist. No, he's not racist, he's just saying a combination of words. It's so fucking retarded. When people joke, or when people do satire, they're satirizing certain things, they're joking about certain things. The jokes have a point. Different jokes work in different communities, different jokes are funny for different reasons. Sometimes they're funny because they're bigoted or racist, sometimes they're funny because they're making fun of bigoted or racist, extreme, whatever shit. But like, you can't just write it off, you're like, oh, they're just joking, oh, they're being crypto, oh, they're blah, blah, blah. Like, when Nick is telling jokes, and this is this stupid trap that everybody fucking falls into. When Nick tells a joke about whatever bullshit cookie, I don't know, I don't watch his stuff as frequently, I only see clips. But whenever he tells jokes on stream, you can't just write those off by either saying, that's his 100% true, solid belief, and I'm going to attack him on it, or that was just a joke, it doesn't mean anything, LOL. It's a bit hyperbolic, it's a bit extreme, but there's like a ton of truth inside of it that the joke represents, right? What is, there's like some old saying of like, there's a little bit of truth in every just kidding, ha ha ha. But when people are incapable of engaging at this level, it's just so annoying. I don't know what this interview is going to be like. And maybe it'll be a good interview. I'm not shouting at Piers necessarily. But when the whole stuff just becomes trying to catch somebody of like, oh, but didn't you say this like 5 years ago? Oh, didn't you say this 10 years ago? Oh, didn't you say this? Like, that might work for some people on the outside who aren't familiar, but with his own fan base, it doesn't work. I don't give a fuck about this. And for a lot of people, they might just not care that much, depending on the issue that you're hitting on. Destiny, isn't that your model of Hassan, though? Yes. But Hassan is not trying to gain political power, and Hassan is never going to 180 switch once he's got political power. That's not Hassan's model. Some people are grifting and that they don't necessarily believe in what they say, but there are predictable reasons for why they do it. There might be a media environment that's rewarding them or something like that. Like, look, where are the incentives? Nick doesn't have a lot of those strong incentives. He's pretty, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen, he's fairly honest about what he believes. Maybe I am misunderstanding what you're saying here. Are you saying it's not possible to maintain a mask on persona? No, you can be like mask on a bit, and that you might feel a little bit more extreme maybe than you let on, and you'll be a little bit more extreme maybe than you let on, like a little bit. But if you have a mask on persona where you're legitimately trying to hide shit because of bad, like feedback, then even when you're in power, you'll still try to hide that because you don't want your fans to stop following you. You don't want your political followers to stop supporting you. There's just this very naive concept where people are like, oh my God, he's saying all these things, but once he gets in office, he's going to transform into this crazy fucking whatever monster. It's like, no, if he's going to be the monster, you'll see it before. It's not going to be a random thing that pops up. All of this to say, okay, if there are things that he's saying that you don't like, then confront the things that he's saying. Just confront them. Fight him on those points.
What is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think that...
Hold on. Destiny, if you watch this interview, he says it could be more than 6 million. Never heard him say that until this interview, because it's a joke. That's a joke. It's like saying like, oh, that's like the meme of like, there's a hot Jewish girl in front of you and you whisper under your breath. It's like, I think it was more than 6 million. Like, come on, stop. Just like when somebody says like, how many people died in the Holocaust? And you're like, exactly 6 million. Exactly 6 million. Not one more, not one less. That's a joke. When I say it's a joke, do you understand what I mean when I say that? The joke, the reason why that's funny, the thing that you're making fun of there is that the narrative of the Holocaust that has been instituted by the Jews that have been traditionally in control of the United States, the media, and our education, and especially our educational institutions, have mandated such a stringent connection, such a strong adherence to the Jewish narrative surrounding the Holocaust, because it absolutely must be true in order for AIPAC to maintain its unquestioned superiority in the United States, and for things like BDS to exist beyond the question of the ordinary American citizen, and for America to give infinite support to the country of Israel, that the narrative of the Holocaust has to exist and has to be protected in such a strong manner. So when you ask me how many Jews died in the Holocaust, whatever they said last, whatever number they said, that's the one I'm going to give, because it's definitely exactly, that's the joke, right? I don't know why I shouldn't have to explain this. Okay.
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison or his son David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time, I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate, we play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
So the response is push him on his actual beliefs. When you joke about this, what do you mean? Do you think that this is true? Do you think it's not true? Like that's the...
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city. And they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. I was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years. In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University and I read a lot of things online and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the South Side of Chicago or the West Side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America.
That was such a word game. I don't know if Piers will catch this. I don't know what kind of mode he's in right now, but it's funny that I feel like Fuentes changed something spatially that's actually different in time, where he said he went to a different place and he realized it wasn't like his hometown and that everything was being lost. And I was like, well, no, hold on. You just went to a different place. What do you? Of course, it's not like the place you just came from.
So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but
my first obvious question is: were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume there were immigrants in your family who came to the U.S. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like I said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you mentioned,
you
mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So,
yeah.
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors...
Like, he kind of already addressed... I need to shut my brain off for this. Because you already kind of clarified that distinction, right? Now it's an unceasing wave of never-ending immigration after they always point to this 1965 Immigration Act, but when my family came, it was different. They always have like an out for this.
Came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have zero immigrants forever, or even zero immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador, and it's so many with no break for assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody's a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant, no Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
We all grew up a little racist. I don't know, what's the...
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the South side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, in the West Side, on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And
I live in a big, diverse city. I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big diversity. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before.
You got
America.
a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess
that what Fuentes just went off there. I'm sure he's inspired somewhat by neocons. I'm sure he's a little bit jealous of or envious of because that was definitely a higher IQ movement than the MAGA of today. But that loops back into it used to be an old conservative talking point of before we had civil rights, like the black family was a stronger family. Like after the Civil Rights Act and after the modernization of the American black man, you start to see the families falling apart and you start to see all of this crime and everything else. And this didn't happen back before civil rights or whatever. It's kind of a little bit related to that point. I don't know if he exactly meant it that way, but
point about the environment. I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that anecdote, it's just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this already.
But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay. So when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying? No. Well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists, and I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in 19, yeah, so you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer, I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment, your dad's racist because of this joke, now you're a racist, and I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay, people can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with...
Is it all going to be this, I guess? Okay.
No, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the...
He cooks him, don't worry. Okay.
...fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that. You just said blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood, in the ghetto, and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say?
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people. And people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
what's with the
shootings.
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me.
Jeez.
And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's...
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody... The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he can get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I don't know your father. And to be clear...
How do you argue the 1350 stuff against Fuentes' position? I'm pretty sure the 1350 is a bit exaggerated, but like those are the easiest GED like IQ threshold things to own, right? When somebody comes at you like, what do you say about the fact that more blacks commit more crime? Like, what do you think we should do? I don't lock them up. I don't know. If somebody murders somebody does some crime, fucking lock them up. I don't give a fuck if they're black or whatever. Who cares? Like that's the easiest threshold question in the universe. To play games around that is such a losing fucking position. It's a loser of a position. Like, yeah, people do bad shit. Lock him up.
I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
Okay,
that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show, and you shouldn't tell?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
Will.
And I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me. With your own words. With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism, let's talk about racism. Let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by
that? Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them?
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Fuck. Wait. I'm getting so tired of doing optics evaluations or rhetoric evaluations because I'd rather just debate on the facts. And you guys have gotten so obsessed with it, it's boring to talk about. But Nick set himself up with a defensible out at the beginning of this interview by saying, when I'm on stream, when I'm making jokes, like I'm being hyperbolic, I'm not, we're telling jokes here. It's not like 100% serious stuff. Like obviously it's small stream, small amount of people. These are not the messages that I would say to the entire world. So he set himself up with a good out here, but now he is biting the bullet on every single thing he said on his stream. What? Like the response when Piers says this is like, well, no, I'm being hyperbolic, but like what I'm trying to explain to you is like, imagine the fear of an average white person when there are people getting set on fire on buses. Was that a black guy that did that? I don't remember. Or if you're that poor white Ukrainian woman that got stabbed to death by a black guy, if she would have avoided black men on the bus, if she would have gotten off as soon as that crazy black dude entered, she might still be alive today. Like these are like your more kind of like, I think like publicly rhetorically favorable outs that I feel like he set himself up for these outs at the beginning of this interview, but then he's in like full combat mode now. I don't know why he switched. I also think that he's conducting himself like this is a platform of equals instead of he is getting access to Piers' platform, and so he needs to market it like that. Like when I go on Piers' platform, I view it as though I'm on Piers' platform. I'm trying to angle out kind of a little bit to his audience. I'm fighting different battles here. But I think that's what Nick needs to do, because I don't think Nick is big enough to be like, well, I can't believe you do that. You're being mean to me, which is kind of what he's done for part of it. I can't believe you'd attack my dad. It's like, well, you brought him up first, bro. I mean, I don't think that you can just pull out the victim argument when you're coming onto his platform. I think you have to defend it a little better if you want. But.
Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't...
Wait, what?
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago...
But he shouldn't own that he was being literal. He should say that he's still being hyperbolic. I just don't know why he set himself up for that defense and then he stopped.
I believe she was in North Carolina. There is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. They grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's a difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
what proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Is my mic working?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb, or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
Jesus.
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The
No,
difference
I'm
is in
not. What I'm
terms
saying
of
to you is by your
probability.
logic.
By this logic, the turnaround to this would be, oh, well, if we look at victims of terrorism since the inception of the United States of America, who have committed the most, who have murdered more people, I guess, as terrorist acts, you'd probably say, I'm pretty sure it's Muslims, right? For 9/11. Well, I don't know what the totality of all terrorist deaths in all the history of the United States is, but my guess is 9/11 is, does it outrank all of them combined? I don't know how many people died in the McVeigh bombings or anything else, but
If we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably 5%. I guess I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools. Why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same, the black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the population.
are you hearing it? No.
I think the trouble with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No, tell me the number, and then...
That's super going to depend on how you define mass shootings, which is always a highly contentious argument in the United States. I guess when you want to do the racial stuff, I guess liberals or left-leaning people will go to mass shootings, what we all understand to be mass shootings. But when you're talking like guns, then liberals will go to well, we've actually had 500 mass shootings every single year because they'll identify a mass shooting as any shooting where at least 4 people, I think, are shot. So a lot of gang shootings or whatever will be considered a mass shooting. But Piers, for this, must be relying on the actual 10 plus people or 100 people, a huge mass shooting media event or something.
And
yet you're the only.
I don't know if Nick is even aware of these talking points on the left, or because Nick should question that. How do you define mass shooting? But I don't know.
About the same.
No. Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe
no one's buying this. This argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita. And people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference. And it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment. We see what it's like. And the threat, the danger in terms of probability it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. In Chicago, there's 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in the city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black and white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where
How should Piers argue his side, or just eat the bullet or something else? I mean, he's doing the British journalist thing. I think it's an okay way, I guess, to confront politicians or people that try not to be radical or extremist ever. But Nick is a pretty radical and extreme guy, and I think he'll own a lot of that. Generally, if you're when he asked Nick if he wants to be political, I believe him when he says Nick doesn't necessarily want to run for office. I don't know if he would, because when you start working on the media side of things, I mean, one, there's way more money here. In some ways, there's more influence depending on how big the office is, right? You'd rather be a national or international media figure than somebody holding a local elected office, or even as a state assembly person. You'd probably rather be the big media person. So, like, I believe when he says he's not trying to go for a political office there. Now, if you're talking about like a state senator, or like a federal level, like a U.S. senator, or a governor, or like the president, obviously, that might be a different thing. Although jumping immediately to that level would be a lot more difficult. But the fact that Nick is like more extremist makes these types of like gotcha interviews. They're good, I guess, for people that have never heard Fuentes' positions before. Like, I'm sure because the stuff that gets clipped of Nick is probably him being funny and goofy and making jokes, and there are people who are a little bit in denial or haven't heard how extreme his positions are. It's probably good to illustrate that to people. So this is like a good like expose interview. It's just not very good at combating the actual like substantive positions that Nick holds. Or maybe it'll get better. I mean, it's already better than I thought it would be, because the beginning was kind of whatever. But so I don't know.
Have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable. And I think even black people.
Again, Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me.
Ooh, this is going to be a really hard talking point after what he's done. This is actually, you're the real racist. Like, I think all people are beautiful and they should all live in their own homes. We should all have our own cultures in different places instead of mixing them all as one giant one in the United States. Send them home to be with their own cultures.
And I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
you're the product of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not really.
For the sake
Not
of argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage. And your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
For the sake of argument,
the
we can
very
say
person
sure.
you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic. Of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
It's not
and
white, though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a
really. You just keep saying you only want to live in a
white.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally got Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing:
Do you have any non-white? Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are black?
Honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of, when you use the word aversion, that's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally...
I feel like race realist movements today are in and of themselves like the biggest arguments against that ideology, though. Like the idea that he considers Italian and Irish white the same way that British people were considered white is, I think, a really big argument against the idea that we can't kind of merge racial groups. I feel like we always fight at like the highest level or the most abstracted level. So like in this country today, there's like in the United States, like if you're European, you guys have all your different ethnic groups. In the US, we have like white people, brown people, black people, and we don't call them, it's yellow and red. We really just do colors, I guess, for Asians and Native Americans, I guess. And then we don't really draw finer lines than that. Inside racial communities, they might. But especially for white people, for the majority class people, that's all kind of we see. And then if you have like one drop of anything else, you just kind of like belong to that group. So like for a mixed race person in the black community, they might see them as a mixed race person. For a white person, it's just a black person, right? Or like a HAPA, whatever, the half whatever, the Asian island Pacific or whatever people like that. Those are Asian people, or those are Mexican people or Hispanic people, whatever. That's all we see. But if we were to eliminate some of these groups, let's say we got rid of everybody except for just white people, and maybe we kept black people around because of slavery or whatever, I think the white people would start looking at each other and be like, okay, what kind of white person are you? Like the Civil War meme. And then once you've gotten rid of all the undesirable white people, then whoever's left would be looking at, like, oh, well, what kind of Irishman are you? What kind of, are you tall enough? Are you, like, there's always some fucking bullshit to fight over. It just feels retarded to me, but whatever.
Said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
I don't like to give arguments to this side, but one thing that's always interesting to watch people on the left squirm around is asking, oh, okay, so you don't think it's fair to racially stereotype people when you get on the bus. What do you say to women that have been battered or abused by men who feel unsafe around men? Shouldn't we also be criticizing them for their decisions also? Which is a harder one if you're on the left, depending on how you view it all to navigate, especially depending on how woke you act.
Ranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America.
Proportionally far fewer.
Far fewer. How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
You're very big. You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific, for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that.
That's a meaningless argument. The guy that murdered that woman. Well, there should have been something. We have to have some place to put crazy people in the U.S., and we don't have a place for crazy people right now. But the guy was in prison for 5 years. Like what else do you want him to do? Do you need to look ahead and just automatically know who's going to get more and more, outrageous and commit more crimes? Well, for him, you might have been able to, but only on the mental health side of things. But we just don't have the infrastructure for that.
But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience. Okay. Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that. Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf.
What is the counter to that point about women scared of men? The point is you bite the bullet on it and you concede it, but you have to push in both directions. You have to say it's understandable why women would be scared of men, but it's not fair to stereotype all men as murderers or whatever, right? That's a thing that hopefully you go to therapy or something to try to get over. Like if a woman has an aversion to all men because of some past traumatic event, that's a thing that you try to overcome in therapy. And you definitely wouldn't generalize that to an entire group of people and say all women should have this bad reaction to men, even ones who've never been abused by men, because you understand that by calling it a trauma response, you're necessarily saying it's not like an intellectually justified feeling, it's an emotionally justified one. But, so the uncomfortable thing is, on the right, you're forcing two different sides, I think, to bite the bullet. On the right, you have to get them to admit that it's okay for some women to feel that way about some men. That's fine. But then on the left, you have to be willing to say, I can understand why some people feel that way. If you've had bad experiences with a certain race of taxi drivers, a certain race of criminals, a certain race of, whatever, yeah, you might have bad feelings about it too. But the important thing is to recognize that like your individual experience shouldn't be generalized onto an entire population, especially if you're making decisions about those people. Like if you're a boss or something like that, or you engage in some kind of trade or housing or whatever. And it's the thing that you fight against. But like you have to be cognizant of what's going on. You can't just pretend that it doesn't exist and that everybody should get rid of all bad feelings as long as they align with our particular agenda. Like people are going to have feelings about different people, whether they've been personally victimized by them or whether they've seen it a lot in the media, so they're led to believe that. And it's something you need to be aware of and you have to fight against it.
Like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that. Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it been perpetrated by white people?
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
But you're implying that white people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of course,
I never said white people don't do it.
Of course, deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either know. You neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've
he kind of fucked himself. Nick fucked himself here. I don't know. Again, I'll repeat it. He gave himself the perfect out in the beginning. And then he just totally started biting all the bullets on everything, right? Like, hey, you say a lot of crazy stuff on stream. Yeah, I say crazy stuff on stream sometimes, like, but I don't really mean it. What about when you said you wanted to kill little boys? I do want to kill all little boys. Like, bro, why did you even bother saying the first thing?
Said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime. I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he is. He's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this.
If all the men around the women are like that, then shouldn't she be afraid of men? That's more Nick's argument. Well, but all the black people aren't like that. All the black people aren't like that. In fact, I think a big killer question you could arguably ask, now Nick could always invent stuff, but you could ask Nick, like, do you cross the street whenever you come across a white person? Like, aren't you more afraid of white people than anything else? And Nick would say, well, of course not, black crime stats and blah, blah, blah. But then you say, well, who was the person who showed up at your house to kill you? Right? Wasn't that was a white person, right?
A racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic.
Seems like the question about his family triggered him. No, I don't think it actually triggered him. I think he just tried to moral high ground it. But like, that's a tough one to fight on because he brings it up, you know? Like, he brings it up. So if he's going to bring it up, then I think it's fair game. But some people have, I don't know if my position on this is just incomprehensible. I feel like people are just retarded. When I'm fighting online and people bring up my son, I typically don't bring my son out in public to show off or to talk about or whatever. So I feel like it's weird when people attack me on like what Nathan thinks or whatever. He's 14, he's doing his own life, figuring his shit out, fucking, he says retarded shit right now. Hopefully in a year or two he's less retarded, but he's a 14-year-old, right? So I get irritated when like Hassan is like obsessively talking about, you know, my minor non-consenting son. That being said, if Hassan wanted to shit on Nathan directly for his political opinions, I think that's fair game. Now, arguably, I would say, well, why are you attacking a 14-year-old? Maybe that's kind of weird or whatever. But like, if Nathan puts the opinion out there and Hassan or somebody wants to attack him directly on it, oh, fine. I mean, he's putting it out there. That's kind of on him. It gets a little bit weirder because he's kind of young. But there's just a different feeling there in attacking family members that you're not bringing out. So like, for dating Melina, if people, I don't think I ever got mad at, or I would fight people if they would call me like a cucker, if they want to fight about like Melina and my relationship, but I'm not going to say like, you can't talk about Melina and my relationship. I would just fight them on the points themselves because like my relationship with Melina is like a big part of my stream. Like she's in the background all the time. We travel together. We take pictures together. Like if you want to attack me on it, that's fair game and we'll fight on it. Sure. Because it's like out there. Now, if I was trying to have like a very offline relationship with Melina or very private or not public and people bring it all the time, like, well, why the fuck are you even bringing this up? I'm not like bringing this out a lot. That's kind of weird. Or I don't think it's fair game, I guess. But,
the problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we've been telling black people this for a generation.
Do you think it's better if you just bite the bullet on the whole black people stats thing and debate on what should be done about it instead? Yeah, but that's what I said. You should do, I can solve black crime in the United States. I don't know if I talk about this on stream or off stream with all my racist friends. You can solve black crime in the United States, okay? You take the most racist people you can find and you put them in charge of like schedules and patrol routes and everything else. And then you take the wokest people you can find as cops and you make them the police officers. And then there you go. The racist people can know what areas need to be policed and they're not going to be fucking delusional about it. But then the actual cops themselves aren't racist and they go out and they enforce crime where they see fit. And then there you go. You create that separation, problem solved, all right?
If you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you.
Destiny, I watched his stream after he was genuinely upset that he brought up his dad. Oh, well like if you're going to tell stories about it, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's a dumb thing to be upset about. Unless maybe did he show a clip of it? Maybe he brought that dad story up like 10 years ago and now he's regretful of it and he doesn't like that maybe, but no.
Agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we've been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see.
I just don't get why he'd be offended by that when in the second sentence he's justifying it. You know what? Actually, delete everything I just said about that. Delete everything I just said about that. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. Sometimes when I say that, I'm being sarcastic. I'm about to sarcastically say you're right because I just don't want to talk about it. But unironically, I have no fucking whatever part exists in the brain for like last name and family and all that. I don't have that at all in my brain. So let me intellectualize this. I'm sorry, because I have to come back here because I was just responding off for what I feel. I guess for an ordinary person, you actually might feel emotionally attacked if somebody were to attack the reputation or whatever of your dad. That actually could have been a genuine response that Fuentes felt, actually. That could have been, sure. Actually, that's totally possible. It's probably pretty normal, actually. I just didn't even, my brain doesn't even go there. If my mom or dad said some dumb shit, that's on them, fuck it. But for most people, I understand that could be an irritating thing, yeah.
That way, it's because the system's rigged against you. And so we've been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence, and that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media. On
so
the
just to be
body
clear,
cam
you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are narcissists?
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on
you're
me.
ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life.
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
You keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
I
You're being very rude by interrupting me right
apologize
now.
to you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay. We're talking he's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people, and indeed what Ye said about the same subject matter. Angel Studios are back with a new must-see documentary. It's called Thank You, Dr. Fauci, and you're going to hear a lot more about it over the next few months. Award-winning filmmaker Jenna Thirst digs into the origins of COVID-19, a possible bio-arms race with China, and claims about history's biggest public health cover-up. It's not a right-wing film or a left-wing film. It's a film about transparency, which is something we should all care about. Thirst pulls over documents and interrogates scientists, intelligence professionals, and whistleblowers. It's being described as Oppenheimer meets Outbreak, and if you've ever wondered what really happens behind closed doors, you'll want to see it. Angel Studios is powered by its guild members voting on real stories. You can find out more at angel.com/peers. Become a member, stream Thank You, Dr. Fauci, and be part of the conversation, demanding truth and accountability. Okay, back with Nick Fuentes. Let's just turn to anti-Semitism. In your interview with Stephen Crowder last week, you answered emphatically that you don't hate all Jews. Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute
Oh God! Did Hassan watch this? I think he did. Somebody sent me Hassan's audience, but I only watched like a minute of this in the beginning. Bro, Hassan's audience cannot watch this point. Oh no!
Testable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it, I can show you, I can name the names. I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Jewry, I think, doesn't that refer to like the actual organized body of Jews that are trying to run around doing stuff? I don't think that just refers to like the Jewish people, no?
Take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called The State of World Jewry. Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry address.
But Nick, what do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States or Europe or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip. I read what they write. I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized, and they have a...
When Jews say it, it means the Jews of the world. When Nazis say it, they mean the same, but as a movement with a united desires and power and so on. Sure. Yeah.
National self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is a Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
But that's weird because you said this.
Uh-oh.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
The Jews and Christians have never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations. Not saying every individual Christian. And of course, there have been Christians and there have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts to Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples.
No, I hear you. I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute what you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. And I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends. I have Jewish friends. We're both Catholics. Therefore, we're Christians. So it doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand. The
reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I want to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow, because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
No, it's funny. Sorry. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
I do actually. I do because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that?
So you concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust?
You almost got the 6.
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
So why have you doubted the numbers in the past?
I'll tell you why.
How do you respond to the math doesn't add up? I mean, it does. There's just like a lot nobody knows anything about. Like most Jews weren't even killed in gas chambers, right? Like a lot of these people were killed in mobile vans. I think most were even just shot to death, like taken to places and shot and mass graved and buried or whatever. If you try to do the math of like 2 gas chambering, 6 million Jews in 4 years, there's a lot of other.
I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative, and I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends, to tell you the truth, is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries. And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West. No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100,000, and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job? That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you'd want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail and is banned and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
There is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis,
no debate to be
in the
had.
trials
You
after
can
the war
debate everything.
confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy it, the amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials and for historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than that.
Well, it could be higher. That is
true.
true.
It's at least.
But you accept at least.
It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But
Okay.
it could be 100
Well,
times
people
more
are
than
going to
that.
be, okay, the people are going to be.
But let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yeah.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries. And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be in prison.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized. Right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized. It's my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have...
Fuck. How is there a link to Nick talking about this appearance on a stream afterwards? I'm just curious what his thoughts were. I just feel like he's being so combative. There's a lot of common ground that he could have drawn here, especially with this like free speech is under attack in Europe thing with Piers. But his obviously Piers is going to be very antagonistic. But Nick must have known this is going to be a highly antagonistic interview coming into this, right? That's what the British journalist guys do.
Have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog marched to prison cells for stuff they put on social media. Right? So yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And there'll be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, I started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives and I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist and the social consequences still persist. And I think that that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, Why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about, lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way, and no other ethnic group has a get-out-of-jail-free card. Just play that. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust, you can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponize the Holocaust for their own personal get-out-of-jail-free or whatever you call it.
You don't know anyone that does that? That believes
I'm
that?
sure there are some people that do that, but it's such a ridiculous generalization. You know, the truth...
Didn't Benjamin Netanyahu evoke the Holocaust when he was in the U.S. talking to Congress? I feel like that would be a strong example if he did. I don't remember if he did or didn't. He probably did. Probably a safe bet to say that he did.
is that most Jewish people have lost relatives in the Holocaust. In fact, I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
Uh-oh.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
You regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because he also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being one out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking him why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
See, that's the reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool? The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years? Yeah,
the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching. You know,
you might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members were murdered.
Yeah, we got all that. Me mum. Like I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mum got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say.
I'm so confused why he doesn't. There are talking points for all of this, right? Or does Nick not use these anymore? Like I said, I don't really watch his stuff except for whatever gets clipped. But like the thing is like, well, what about the 13 million Germans or whatever that were relocated and were kicked out of their countries after the end of World War II? Or what about all the dead Armenians that we never talked about?
I don't care.
Because Turkey's a U.S. ally. Or what about like there's a million other people who were injured or whose families were displaced after World War I and World War II, but we don't seem to talk about that. It's only the Jews, right? This is the go-to talking point. Does he? God damn it! I just dropped something on my keyboard. I don't know why would you go with the who cares about this guy and his dead family? I feel like why would you? That's like the only road that you shouldn't go. I don't know.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. And what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
And that's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, I mean,
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow
up?
That is just childish.
He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II and it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's compelling and it's cool. And we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, "Oh, it's not very funny, mate. Me mom." And it's like, shut up. Like, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers?
Can you counter your own Nick talking points? I'd like to know why they're wrong, please. They're not wrong. Jewish people do make us talk about the Holocaust too much. I don't care about the Holocaust anymore. I want to learn about the Holodomor, okay? Because the tankies are too strong in our country. No, I mean, like, the actual talking points that, the thing is that the Holocaust was a uniquely horrible and evil event. Like, that, like, it was probably the most effective, like, organized mass killing in all of fucking human history. That's a pretty insane way to go about things. Absent the existence of Israel as a country, who the fuck even knows if Jewish people would exist in that much of a form? Like, you're talking about the elimination of basically half these people, right? That was a pretty for not even like a good reason too, you know. Not that there's ever a good reason to mass murder a group of people, but like, yeah, I don't know. It was like factory farming except applied to Jewish people. Yeah, not good. Not good.
Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that, or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again, the mask slips. And it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. This. And I'm sitting here saying, it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And,
not that
and what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
You're not kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right?
I know.
You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain. Right, and at some stage that brain has taken you off these rabbit
Is this an
holes.
interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who lost a lot of family members to the Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives. Okay, the Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about the Schindler's List? Tell me about the Schindler's List. Well, tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners, for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain.
From America? What, bro? You're mixing up the CRT and DEI and slavery education talking points with the anti-Semitic BDS talking points, or yeah.
And in our own story, we have been made because, well, let's just be clear, it doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too...
At Destiny, the deaths were horrible, but just like the Armenian genocide, the dehumanization and cruelty is the real nightmare part, and the fact that things like the Armenian genocide are not recognized or punished, it just opens up future iterations. Yeah, that's bad, but like, please God, don't say that I'm signing off on the genocide of the Armenians. I'm pretty sure when the Turkish people did their revolution and they wanted their own country, they were like, this is a country just for Turks, okay? Get the fuck out if you're Greek, if you're Armenian, whatever. Like, there might be a part of the history that I don't know, so maybe this did happen and I missed it. But like, if there was an opportunity for Turkey to trade or get rid of all the Armenians in a way that didn't involve just killing, 1.5 million of them, I think they probably would have been fine with that. Like they did with the Greeks. They traded like 1 million Greeks back. They were like, oh, here, fucking take them. Whereas for Germany, like for the Hitler shit, like that guy really did want to kill like all the Jews. Like when he would take new territory or make alliances with countries or shit or whatever, like this guy was literally like talking to other leaders or temporary leaders he would install and be like, I need you to make sure that you're getting all the fucking Jews out of here. You need to kill all these motherfuckers. It was like an obsessive hatred. And it's not like the Jewish people threatened like the German progeny or the German people like in any measurable way. Whereas like for the Turkish people, they might be like, well, there's a lot of Armenians to encapsulate in a new country. Like it was, I guess you could argue this is part of what you're saying for the dehumanization. They were like, the Jew obsession shit was really over the top. It was like some wild shit.
White and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives.
Wait.
Honestly,
Nick
it's true. And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly,
yeah, it's a crock. You don't want to hear anymore about me mom and me dad.
Listen, what you just said is a crock of shit. And you
it's
know
true.
it.
It's called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize this stuff.
You know.
You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like what you just said.
I'm banned from banking. I'm banned from banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to? I do it for money. How much money you make? Your company's worth $100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America. I'm banned from processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened?
Then don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a grift.
How much money? How much
if I
money
wanted
are
to be a grifter, I'd be like you.
How much money?
Destiny. So the white papers played no part. Which white papers are we talking about? I'm not sure what you're referring to there.
Let's say,
how much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust.
#1 live streamer in America.
And Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys
I'm not done hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three sons. I've got three sons, and they don't share your views about slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 100 years.
Look up the Madagascar plan. Oh, because people say that at some point, or initially they wanted to ship all the Jews out. I would have to go and read more about it. My understanding is those were never pursued that seriously. That when they call it the final solution, it was more like we've tried nothing and now we're all out of ideas, so time to kill them all. But I could be wrong. I don't have the strongest World War II history. But my idea was there was never a super strong commitment to shit like that. That it was always half-assed and it was oh no, fuck it. We tried to move some out. Now we don't care. Let's fucking kill them.
50 years or more. They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views.
British white papers of 1939. I don't know what are you talking about for Israel-Palestine? What does that have to do with the Holocaust shit that we're talking about now?
About different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation for saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion.
Great Britain put a hard cap on Jewish immigrants to British mandated Palestine, was $75K per year. Okay, what about it? I don't know what your question is.
And it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws. And that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called the Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality. We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at this. Our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white.
Whoa! Destiny, you may laugh, but Fuentes has more clout right now than you and Hassan combined. Instagram Reels is filled to the brim with his clips. I'm not even in the US and all my friends see his clips there. That might be true for some algorithms. I'm not denying that, I guess, but I still feel like sometimes people are overplaying this. I like a lot of racist shit on my Instagram and everything. And I think I've seen one reel of Nick Fuentes in my entire life on Instagram. So for some people, they have people are saying oh my God, that gets everywhere. It's I don't see it at all. But I'm sure there are certain algorithms where you get fed more of it. But
in 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
In Gaza, it's against
How many
whites.
Christians are there in the world? Like me.
1 point some billion.
Yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
He got 60K concurrent views on Rumble.
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
Who am I losing to?
white people,
Who
these
am I losing to?
white people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it. Mass migration. You're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be in Israel. In 50 years, there isn't going to be a white Christendom.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
The one thing I don't understand too, sometimes I think maybe I overthink this or overanalyze it. Because do you have to do the Jew shit? Like, I feel like Nick would have a much higher ceiling on what his popularity could be, or he would uncap it if you could just like drop the Jew shit. Like, do you really think? Can't you? Because you can do all the same xenophobic, racist stuff around immigration or mass migration or whatever. Like, you can do all these talking points without having to have the Jew shit. And I feel like the Jew shit can just turn off so many people, and you don't need the Jew shit. And like a lot of people that are turned on by the Jew shit aren't even going to be your natural allies anyway. Like Fuentes is never aligning himself heavily with like all the fucking Arabs or like the tanky lefty people. I don't know, but maybe he genuinely believes it. I guess maybe it might be a thing that he actually heavily believes in.
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
But you're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You've talked about.
Are we done talking about white genocide?
Well, no, I'm coming to the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands. Let's take a look.
That's true.
Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much, you're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly, so they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children? Therefore, you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population. I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic.
Why don't you get
have
married?
Sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know,
At this point, don't you think it's helping him to hate Jews? Isn't anti-Semitism really popular right now on both sides? I mean, arguably, yeah, but I don't think it's good to build movements off of like spooky boogeyman enemies like that, especially when it's all bullshit or it's like 95% bullshit. Like Fuentes has the capacity to build a movement on stronger ideas right now. That's why he pushes stuff like education and college more, and he tries to not do like the low IQ shit that MAGA does today. So I feel like he could drop the Jew shit, but maybe he actually believes it. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Wife would be screaming about that. Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things. It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my followers, I tell them to get married. But what's happening with women?
You literally just told your followers. Hang on. In that clip, you literally told followers, women, they get old, they get fat, they get ugly, they get very annoying. So where's the incentive to get married to women? There isn't one. You're actively telling them the opposite.
You're extrapolating a lot. We can complain.
Just quoting you back yourself. Yeah.
No, but you're extrapolating and saying, well, you say women are annoying, so therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land, but it's going to be.
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
Oh, you should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called the Groy Bets, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually? Look, just to clear up one of the many theories about you. I have no idea what the answer is, and you haven't got to answer. But are you?
Explain Hassan's revival based off strictly boogeyman feeling his content. Is that how you would describe that? I feel like it's almost the opposite. I feel like Hassan would be one of my examples. I think Hassan boogeyman Jewish people for a long time in the whole Israel shit and how weirdly anti-Semitic and Jew-hating his fan base has become. But like, I think he's got a really difficult time getting a foothold anywhere else at the moment. Like he theoretically could have had opportunities or made more opportunities, but he was just obsessively talking about Israel constantly. Holy fuck.
Actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around. Okay. So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women. I am. All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get.
Wasn't he losing a lot of viewers before he got to farm Israel-Palestine? I don't know if he was necessarily like on the decline or not before Israel-Palestine, but also keep in mind too, Hassan's goal is different. Like Hassan could still like gain viewers again, but Hassan's goal is to be a social media influencer. He's an influencer, hardcore capitalist guy. That's all he wants at the end of the day. He doesn't care about political power or getting people elected or exercising political power, whereas Fuentes does. So it's a bit different. You want to like stability in Hassan's movement is irrelevant because he's just trying to make money and farm people for dollars and be an influencer. Whereas Fuentes wants to have some kind of political influencer power, right?
Fat. Says the guy, have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's
always
you're an expert in women, free love.
Given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This
you know, you're talking about empathy and your kids are empathetic and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So yeah,
let me play
another
clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics
that's what
say.
You believe,
they have fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped. But there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watch what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women.
I'm passionate. It's an issue I'm passionate about.
You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when? You don't have relationships, you don't have sex. When are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them. And that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll, they're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average
What's happening with the average man, bro?
weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days will tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing, you're a misogynistic pig. Because I don't know what that is. I guess
come on, let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home, that all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up, that's what they want, that they're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny, but actually, you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer. And if I was, in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yet here you are, 27 years old. And most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said you were a racist.
Mean nothing to me. Oh, hang on, can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label.
Okay.
You said, Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
It's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so I didn't give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to infer something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label of being a racist. No, you did. You said, I'm a racist. You gave yourself the label.
You're going to have to tone it down a little, all right? You're going to have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did.
You did.
But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you deny the Holocaust. And I'm not about the labels,
you
man.
Didn't deny
I'm just
the Holocaust.
past that.
As I said to you, look, Nick, I just wanted to go over the stuff that everyone uses out there about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview. Right?
Okay.
You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
I'm a maximalist. I'm a Holocaust.
That is significant. You did admit you're a racist. And you have spelled out a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you said you're not gay. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, and I own the labels, okay? But I just don't care that much about that.
That's fine.
I feel like this is like a weird...
I'm not saying you have to care, Nick. You don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right? That's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I had. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been overtly hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile, angry, shouty match with you. I simply want you to spell out exactly what you've meant about all these things, and people can then be the judge of them. So let's take another break, and we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others.
30 minutes to go.
Christmas is peak time for online shopping sprees, but that also means it's peak time for hackers and data brokers who steal your information online. The solution is very simple. Use ExpressVPN to shut them down. Top-tier encryption keeps your activity hidden, even on dodgy public Wi-Fi, which is perfect for holiday travel. You can set your location to 105 different countries, which lets you access content.
Why only 105?
Users save hundreds on streaming and even plane tickets with ExpressVPN, all for $3.49 a month. It's a no-brainer. I use it, and you should too. Right now, you can get an extra 4 months of ExpressVPN if you go to expressvpn.com/Piers. That's ExpressVPN's lowest price ever, plus 4 extra months of service. To scan the
YouTube.
QR code on the screen, or go to expressvpn.com/Piers. Okay, back with Nick Fuentes. You began your show in 2017, the same year as Trump was inaugurated for his first term in office. You supported him at that time, but you've grown increasingly disillusioned, I think it'd be fair to say. Let's play a recent clip from you about Trump.
We played this game in the first term. We're 10 years
YouTube?
in. And you still have these people, I hate to say it, but they're just like in denial. And they're like, okay, everybody, let's all go on Twitter and let's tell Trump, don't screw over your voters. Okay. Hey, Trump, don't hire John Ratcliffe in the CIA. Like, what are we doing? We lost. It's over. The time to make demands was during the election when he needed the votes. He's a lame duck president. He doesn't need anything from us. He's not even on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. So what are you talking about? We're going to all rally and tell him, don't hire yet another neocon?
Now, over the weekend, you posted this on X. You said performative cruelty is the perfect phrase to characterize the Trump admin and the mood of the MAGA movement. In order to compensate for his compromises and failures, Trump has to fall back on mean-spiritedness to appeal to the basest instincts of its followers. It's really sad. I mean, do you think you're the best person, Nick Fuentes, to lecture people about performative cruelty?
Why? Are you accusing me of being cruel? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
How am I cruel?
You're cruel about black people. You're cruel about women. I mean, you're cruel about a lot of people, and you're very performative.
Okay. I don't think I'm performative. If anything, everyone else is performative. I'm authentic. You know, whatever you want to say about me, it's real. It's from the gut. But yes, I do think it's performative. And what I mean by that is, you know, when they're doing the deportations, they know the deportations are not where the base wants them to be. They deported, the figures are disputed, but from my data, it's 300,000 in the year, which is not a massive deportation.
Yikes.
They know the base is unhappy with that. So what do? The deportations that they are carrying out, they do a big spectacle and they arrest everybody and they film it and they put a hype at it. And there's a meanness in there. They played that song. I think from Sabrina Carpenter or something, and they make it a joke. They make it glib, and they do that because they're not delivering on the promise. So they compensate by doing it meaner, edgier, more mean-spirited, so that the base will overlook the fact that it's not happening. And I think that's by definition performative cruelty. You can call me a hypocrite, but it's definitely true about what they're doing in the administration.
You went to see Trump at Mar-a-Lago with Ye for dinner. What was that like?
It was very interesting. They're my two heroes. Ye is my hero. Trump is my hero. Even though he's very disappointing, I still have a personal hero of mine. And he's a remarkable person. It was a great conversation. We got along pretty well. He liked me. I liked him. It was a love fest.
I mean, he got attacked afterwards for supping with the white supremacist devil. I mean, do you accept you are a white supremacist?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think white people are superior to black people?
No, I'm a Christian, so I believe everybody is equal before God.
Including women?
Yes.
So you give women equal rights then?
Equal's not the same, right?
Great. Okay, so you just built a little bullshit, didn't you?
Damn.
No, why are you like mad about this? No.
You want women to be treated equally before God, but you don't want to give them equal rights.
Yeah, because women and men are different. Do you believe there are two genders?
It's your view.
Do you think there's two genders?
I do think there are two genders, yes.
Okay, and so you mean there's distinction. There are two distinct genders.
I think we should all have the same rights to...
Well, if they're meaningfully distinct, biologically distinct, and they have different social and biological roles, I think it would follow that we would treat them a little bit differently in the law.
Do you think the Catholic Church's teachings reflect that?
I do. Yeah, there's no female priests. Have you ever seen that?
Do you think that the Catholic Church thinks all women should be deprived of the vote?
Yeah, I think so.
No, they don't.
I think
they technically banned women from becoming priests, right? It's not, you can't do holy orders if you're a woman. How did Piers lose the optics, even though this is probably a huge win for Nick overall? Sane washing. He also showed himself to be a dipshit capable of more smugness than even Piers himself. I don't know. I mean, after this one, I think Piers has done pretty good. I don't think Piers sane washed anything. I think, if anything, Piers, I think, made Fuentes look more unhinged than Fuentes even normally looks, at least to an ordinary audience. Fuentes' fans might think this was like really based and epic or whatever, but I think for most ordinary people watching this, it's going to be not that great. I think they're going to think he's a little bit more unhinged than they thought originally.
They do, yeah.
You think the Catholic Church position is women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I think so, yeah, but I'm not positive.
No, it's bullshit.
Oh, it should be.
It should be. So if you were Pope, that's what you do. You could be Pope because you're celibate.
That's true. And I'm also from Chicago, like the Pope. But look, I mean, women, it says in the Bible that women have no authority over men, and they can't teach men, and that's why there's no female priests.
There's a lot of things in the Bible. I mean, do you take every word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
That's all of it. All of it is sacrosanct.
A theological debate. Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
They should be.
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not.
Why is this lagging?
A Catholic
I am
position.
a Catholic. Many things are.
138.40. Hold on.
You're a New York.
And it's contrary because you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic position.
I am a Catholic. Many things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
Okay. Well, that kind of is contrary because the whole basis of being Catholic is accepting. Yes, it's accepting the authority of the pontiff.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
You could be. Well, yeah. I mean, you could say that. It wouldn't be true.
If you're extremist, you can't. Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never
That's
deviate if you're an extremist. But even the Constitution's been amended, was it 27 times? People talk about this sacrosanct document. It's been amended 27 times. Yeah.
Oh my, this is not rigorous intellectually. This is very
Just
this
a
is
statement of
tabloid
fact.
theology. Okay, but it's fine. Where were we? We were talking about Trump, and
Well,
somehow we got
on
into
Trump,
you're
look,
white
on
knighting for
Trump-
women's rights.
On Trump, well, I think women should have the same rights as you and I. You don't. That's fine.
Put on the pink hat, bro. Put on the pink hat. We're waiting.
What's the pink hat for?
For the march, for the women's march. Are we going to see you at the women's march, protesting for women's rights and all that?
I think women should have equal rights to men. Period.
You carry tampons in case your female friends get a period or something? Like, it's crazy.
Jesus.
I'd have no problem
diabolical.
giving a female friend a tampon, would you? I don't suppose you've ever seen a tampon, have you?
Gross. Absolutely not.
You think tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're
Really?
filled with period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow.
Are you into that? You like that? You
Have you ever
got
seen
a lot of
it?
tampons?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you?
I've seen them. I've
Oh,
seen
you
them
have?
before.
You've been that close
Yeah.
to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen them. Look, I
Have you seen
I used
videos?
to live with
I
women,
bet
so
you've
I've seen them around the
I bet
house.
you've seen videos, haven't you?
What? What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not
you
sure.
really hate that.
I'm not sure,
You're
mate.
more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
Not
very
really.
revealing.
I'm actually more exercised about your blatant, self-admitted racism than I'm about anything. But the misogyny runs a close second. Let me ask you about Tucker Carlson, because you had a long sit down with Tucker Carlson, in which he was, oddly, I like Tucker, we get on well, I was with him last week in London, but he gave me a harder time than he gives you. And then afterwards, he was more critical. And then you said this about Tucker.
He's a handler. He handles people. That's what he does. He's a fucking liar and a handler. He goes around telling people, I don't know anything. I don't know. Oh, I know nothing. I don't even have a phone. I am just a clueless tourist. I just travel to all these countries and, I don't trust him. And I don't care, maybe that alienates me from people in the conservative movement. I don't care. I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to be a party to whatever that is. Whatever that CIA bullshit is, I'm not going to be a part of it. So, now that I've heard enough from Tucker and I've heard enough from other people and I've seen enough, this guy's not who he says he is, not an ally. Stay the fuck away from me. You're weird, dude. You're weird.
See, what would have been great is if you said that to him when you were sitting opposite him.
Ooh.
Well, when I was sitting opposite him at the dinner and in the interview, he was nothing but nice. He was very nice to me and very cordial, and he didn't call me an anti-Semite.
Oh, so when they're in front of you, they're nice to you? Yeah, no shit. Welcome to fucking media. Even Nick knows this is a stupid fucking point. I don't know if Piers will catch him on it.
And he didn't even press me on it at all. And I thought he would, and I almost wanted him to. He was nothing but nice, and we had a great time. We had a really great dinner, really great interview, and I felt really good about it. And the next week on my show, I said, he really surprised me. He's great. And then every interview he's done since, all he does is call me an anti-Semite. He goes, well, I hate his anti-Semitism, and, I wonder why people like him. And so I just think that's two-faced. So after that experience, it kind of turned me off. I didn't like that, but he's going to do what he's going to do. He's still a nice guy, but I think he's two-faced.
What about Candace Owens? You had a sit down with her. She called you out on a few of your more incendiary comments. You've been attacking her quite virulently recently. What's going on there?
Well, it's me and her. We're so complicated. We're on and off. It's very passionate on both sides. I think there's this intense desire to be friends, but a frustration where we disagree with each other. There's a rivalry. But I thought we were going to have a friendly conversation, and then she kind of did the same thing. We're going to go on a show during the war with Iran. We're literally in the middle of a war. And she texted me the day before the United States bombed Fort O. And she said, would you like to come on my show? I said, absolutely. I said, is this going to be about Iran? She goes, I don't do setups. I said, yeah, let's do it. I come on the show, and then she's got this weird hostile demeanor. She's doing the clit thing. Then she puts it behind a paywall. It was ridiculous. So that really was not nice. And then I think this whole Charlie Kirk thing, I think she's gone insane. I think she's absolutely lost her mind. So I feel sorry for her husband.
What did you feel when Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Where were you when you heard about it?
I was at my house, and a friend of mine who was actually at the event texted me and said, Charlie got shot. I said, who? He said, Charlie Kirk. I said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And honestly, it was devastating. I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all. And we had an intense rivalry, and he hated me. But honest to God, I was devastated. I was emotionally affected by it. I didn't even do a show that night because I was beside myself. So it was rough. I mean, it was hard to watch.
When you say you were beside yourself, I mean, you hated him.
I don't hate anybody. I didn't hate him, but I really didn't like him. I intensely disliked him. And
He called you vermin, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he hated me also.
But you were still beside yourself when you heard what happened to him.
I was. I thought it was disgusting what was done to him, and it was tragic, and it was horrifying.
Do you fear an attack like that on yourself? Have you upped your own security because of this? Because your profile's got exponentially higher since what happened to Charlie Kirk.
I have increased my security, and but something similar like that happened to me. Someone came to my house with a gun about a year ago, almost exactly, trying to kill me, and he was shot and killed in my alleyway. So I've had increased security for a while. It's a bad time out there, and I do believe it was a left-wing person that killed him. I think it was a left-wing person that tried to kill me. So yeah, I take it very seriously. Elon
Musk said on his X platform that you're a Fed, that you're a paid-up hire of the government. Is that true?
No.
100. You've never worked for the government in any capacity.
I've never talked to federal law enforcement. And actually, I've testified to that fact under oath when I was subpoenaed by the Congress. People leave that part out. I got subpoenaed, I think, in January 2022, I think it was. And I was deposed by the subcommittee, the House Select Subcommittee on January 6th. And they asked me, did you speak with any federal law enforcement? And under oath, I said, no, I've never had contact with them. I've never turned over devices. So no, absolutely not.
There's been footage that's come out again this week. This is you at the January the 6th riots. Let's take a look.
Piers, we are taking the Capitol. Keep marching and don't relax, never relax. Break down the barriers and disregard the police. This Capitol belongs to us now. The police are evacuating the Capitol. Politicians don't relax. Scurry out of the people's house.
Now, you're heard there shouting down your loud hailer, break down the barriers and disregard the police. The Capitol belongs to us now. What did you mean by that?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The Capitol belongs to the people.
Disregard the police. So you don't support law and order.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I was just curious because I didn't read every deposition for this, but when I looked this up, does Nick actually say here that he never has done anything with the FBI, or do I have the right transcript? Deposition of Nick Fuentes, February 16, 2022. I just control F to FBI, and I see, Mr. Fuentes, have you ever been interviewed by the FBI or any other federal law enforcement officials in connection with January 6th? He said, Fifth Amendment. Mr. Fuentes, Patrick Casey around February 2021 suggested that he believed that the FBI was attempting to infiltrate your movement. Did you have the same concerns? Fifth Amendment. Does he answer any questions in this? Did you just totally lie about that? Holy shit, 210 times? Upon the advice of counsel and reliance on upon the Fifth Amendment, the Constitution must respectfully refuse to answer this question. Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Nice. So so he just totally, he just flat out lied there and Piers just didn't know? How did he phrase this? Did he?
And I was deposed out. I got subpoenaed, I think in January 2022, I think it was. And I was deposed by the subcommittee, the House Select Subcommittee on January 6th. And they asked me, did you speak with any federal law enforcement? And under oath, I said, no, I've never had contact with them. I've never turned over devices. So no, absolutely not.
Was there a different deposition that I'm not aware of? Oh, hold on. Okay, there's a weird... annoying. Hold on. Maybe this is what he's referring to? Mr. Fuentes, have you turned over any records or devices to federal law enforcement in connection with January 6th or since January 6th, 2021? And if you would like to take a minute to discuss, we can go off the record at 3:13 p.m. Mr. Durkin, thank you. Discussion off the record. And then they come back just 2 minutes later. We'll go back on the record at 3:15. And then Mr. Durkin answers, which I'm guessing is representation for Fuentes. I can represent that he has, to his knowledge, not been interviewed by any law enforcement, federal law enforcement, or any law enforcement, or turned over any of his devices or anything else. So unless somebody was in his house under 2333 or whatever, or the intelligence community is more clever than I think, as far as I know, the answer is no to that, but that's my representation. I don't know how criminal or like congressional interviews go. I thought for like a civil deposition or for like a criminal deposition, is your lawyer allowed to answer on your behalf in a deposition? Is that normal? Because the lawyer is not being deposed. Maybe for congressional stuff you can, or maybe you can ordinarily. Anyways, maybe I don't even know. That's weird. Okay.
There's been footage that's come out again this week. This is you at the January the 6th riots. Let's take a look.
Piers, we are taking the Capitol. Keep marching and don't relax, never relax. Break down the barriers and disregard the police. This Capitol belongs to us now.
What was the question there? Is whether or not he had ever spoken to the FBI or handed over any devices to the FBI. My understanding is the conspiracy that Nick is like a Fed or has like informed on the FBI or whatever, is that it seemed like there was enough here to charge Nick with some kind of federal crime. Like he's very clearly on tape or on a recording saying, we're doing this Capitol shit, screaming. I guess I don't know exactly what he says. I'd have to go back and listen to this whole thing. But people were like, the only way that he could have not been indicted is if he would have given them some device or turned over some information to them.
The police are evacuating the Capitol.
Now, you're heard there shouting down your loud hailer, break down the barriers and disregard the police. The capital belongs to us now. What did you mean by that?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The capital belongs to the people.
Disregard the police. So you don't support law and order?
No, I support law and order. But on that day, the police were brutal. The police killed somebody, Ashley Babbitt. And, they were throwing people off of the rafters. They killed multiple people. So
disregarding the police is the first step to anarchy, isn't it?
Well, I think the first step to anarchy is when the government rigs the election, which is what happened. That is when the government loses its legitimacy, and its enforcers, consequently, do also.
Well,
that's exactly what happened in 2020.
There's no evidence the government rigged the election. You know that. You're a bright guy.
Well, let's talk about it. You want to talk about the election of 2020?
Yeah, I think Trump lost it fair and square. I think he fought the wrong argument about the stolen election. I've said to him, to his face,
I agree.
The argument he should have said is that the deliberate suppression of things like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal from the media, by social media, by big tech, was actually a deliberate attempt to subvert the result of the election.
There's no evidence of this whatsoever. Never released, never. It's just total bullshit, but good one, Piers.
And that's a much better argument because it's undeniable. When the New York Post that had that exclusive were basically shadow banned off all social media for the 2 weeks before the election,
That's a total fucking lie. Piers should be sued for that. And your defamation laws or whatever in the UK are very generous towards the people suing. Whoever is involved, Twitter, I know Elon would never do it, should sue him for that comment or force him to rescind it. They were shadow banned for all of 24 hours, not for 2 weeks. That's just a factual, total fucking lie. But okay.
When the New York Post that had that exclusive were basically shadow banned off all social media for the 2 weeks before the election, that was an absolute disgrace. And if I was Donald Trump, I would focus on that as being my main argument that election was slanted against him. When he goes off into saying that there was widespread rigging and voter systems were wrong, we've litigated all this now through various court cases. Various Republican judges have ruled there was no rigging of that kind. In fact, the American election system is accepted by most people around the world as being one of the best in the world, one of the most reliable. So I just think he fought the wrong argument. If he said the deliberate suppression of damaging stories to the Bidens, which could have swung the election, was outrageous and unacceptable, I'm 100% behind it. But
I mean, he says that as well. There's like 20 different stupid claims Trump makes.
He thought he got me too.
Whoops.
Building this spurious argument that it was all rigged through voting systems and so on, he lost me.
Well, I agree about the voting systems, but when they went into the machines, I think that was ridiculous. However, what has to be accounted for is that in 2016, 35% of the votes were cast by mail. By 2020, it was 70% because of the pandemic. So you double the amount of votes that happened by mail. They called it in-person early voting. They called it a variety of different things. And the other thing that they changed is they solicited the mail-in ballots. So they sent ballots to people's houses. And once you do that, I mean, you have
Reentry.co. Is this a AI analysis or whatever? Summary statistics, approximate breakdown. Questions asked of Nick Fuentes. 150 plus substantive questions. Fifth Amendment invoked 140 plus times, approximately 93% of substantive questions. Questions answered directly, about 8. Basic biographical information only. Questions answered by attorney, about 5. Procedural or factual representations. And exhibition 5. Nice. Jesus.
absentee balloting normally, but it's a process. You got to give your social security number, your ID. They send it to you. There's regulations in place. This is an election where they double the amount of mail-in votes, and they send ballots to people's houses. And when you do that, you break the chain of custody. So they send the ballot out, and then they tell people return it at a 24-hour ballot drop site that's unsupervised. There's thousands of them, and they're going to hope that all the ballots that find their way into these drop boxes were filled out by the person that the ballot was intended for. And I know that didn't happen. I'll tell you why. My uncle has been dead for 26 years. He got a ballot in 2020. It was mailed to my parents' house. And that was happening in nursing homes. That was happening in apartment buildings.
But you also know that every independent body that has looked at this has concluded there was no widespread rigging, that it was a free and fair election, and Trump lost. And the bottom line is he should stop going on about it anyway, because he won back the White House in 2024. By your, as you have been so keen to tell me, move on, right? No one wants to look back too far.
That's a separate argument. I mean, you can say that he should stop talking about it, but whether it was rigged or not is actually relevant to what happened on January 6th. Because what happened on J6 is people were outraged about it. People were furious that, by the way, there's never been an independent ballot audit.
They were furious because they'd been told it was rigged, not because it was rigged.
In all the states where there was alleged to be rigging, that has not happened. And certainly it did not happen up until January 6th. And people said, this is ridiculous. They're stealing it.
Honestly, if either you or Donald Trump or anybody else wants to show me, I said this to him when I interviewed him last, if you show me the actual hardcore, incontrovertible evidence, then great. I've never seen it. Joe Rogan asked him. He didn't produce it with Joe Rogan. It's just never been produced. But look, I don't want to labor the point on that. So I suppose the more interesting question now, as your influence rises in the conservative movement in America, and there's a lot of splits going on amongst MAGA over a number of issues, and about you, and you know this, is your split with Trump irrevocable? Do you feel now, as we head towards the year of the midterms, that it's time to now look to who his successor will be, and who do you think that person should be?
Well, it's not irrevocable, but I am very pessimistic about this administration. And succession is something that I've been interested in for as long as I've been doing this show. And I think it's very clear that they're...
What? How long has he been doing a show? Like 7 years? Isn't Succession like a new TV show? Only been like a year or two?
Grooming JD Vance to be that successor. And by they, I mean Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson.
Liar, dude.
Wrong soundboard.
What a fucking wheezy little liar, dude.
Peter, it's very clear that they are grooming JD Vance to be that successor. And by they, I mean Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel. There seems to be an organization that was put in place roughly around 2022 when Peter Thiel was very active in the midterm elections. He spent, I think, over $30 million, $15 million for Vance, $15 million for Masters. Spent a lot of money in a lot of other congressional races, trying to unseat the Republicans that voted for impeachment in 21, and also building out a media market, building out a patronage network, funding things like Passage Press, Sovereign House, a number of other projects to create sort of like a self-contained media ecosystem. And Vance is clearly the selected nominee. That is who the interests want. And they've been pushing for him very strongly. So I think he's the heir apparent right now. There's a forceful push. I've heard good things about him. I've heard bad things about him too. And where I think it needs to go is I think we need to return to the message from 2016, what Trump said in the first election, which is we need to drain the swamp. We need to get the money out of politics, the super PACs, the special interests, put America first in foreign policy and the wars, close the border and deport the illegals, and reindustrialize America, bring back manufacturing, bring back jobs. We're in this Cold War with China. We need America to have productive capacity again. We need America to have wealth. So I think whoever is going to bring us back to that, that's who I'm going to support. And I haven't seen enough from Vance yet.
You called J.D. Vance's wife a Jeet. What does that mean?
It's a slur for Indians.
Why did you use that?
Jesus.
Well, you want the honest answer?
Because you're racist?
No, there's actually a different reason. The reason why I said that, if you watched the whole show, did you watch that whole show?
No, but you've admitted you used that slur. I'm just curious why you would use that about a woman with her heritage.
I'll tell you, there's a really important reason why, and this is why context matters. If you look online at the people that are supporting J.D. Vance the most, they are racist. They're racist also, let's say. And they look at someone like myself. I don't support J.D. Vance. And they say, you're brown. You're a third worldist. They are gleefully participating in the cruelty. You could say the performative cruelty of the Trump administration. They say, you're going back. You have 100 days until you're being deported. You're going in a crystal. And then they tell us to vote for J.D. Vance. And so all I did on the show is I said, you have basically racist chuds that post memes about Indians all day on Twitter, memes about third worldists and Palestinians even. But then they want to turn around and support a guy who has said on Twitter, how dare you say I'm racist? I have non-white kids and I'm in an interracial marriage. And all I said is I just said that's a little ironic. I said that's hypocritical. And Vance is going to have to explain to all of his supporters who have gassed him up as the real mass deportation candidate. He's going to have to explain to them what's going on with that. What is with the contradiction? Because
you don't feel any accountability for the millions of young people.
Well, I mean, I assume his wife came in legally, right? Like
that will hear you use that slur and think it's fine to use it.
No, I think that's ridiculous.
Okay. Let's take a final break. I come back with a little kind of summary of how you think this interview has gone for you.
Jesus.
Okay. If you're a fan of epic fantasy, Arthurian legends,
I'm not.
And standing on the brink, not a sneak peek, episodes 1 and 2, a full month before anybody else. So
wow.
Go ahead. Dragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin premieres on January the 26th. Okay, Nick Fuentes, we've been talking for nearly 2 hours. What is your view of how the interview has gone?
I think it was great. Honestly, I think it was a tough interview. You're a tough interviewer. But I don't think there were surprises. I will not say it was an ambush because it wasn't. I sort of anticipated that you would make some choices about how you wanted it to go, and I was fine with it. So I thought it was terrific.
As a Catholic, you're probably aware the Jerusalem Post has recently called on the Pope to openly condemn you. Would it matter to you if the Pope did? He's an American Pope, obviously.
It would be very disheartening, yes.
Why?
The Jerusalem Post?
Because he's our spiritual leader. He's the head of the church. He's the vicar of Christ. So
why did the Jews get to make demands of the
Catholics? Disheartening.
What?
And it would depend upon what he would say exactly. But yeah, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that
at all. If he condemned you because you've openly admitted to being a racist on this show?
Wow, Nick Starman, thank you for gifting What's Up in Kick Chat.
Oh, this racist. I would be disappointed if he said that because I think that word racist, it means something different to everybody. And so I think that's just silly. I think that's just semantic.
It's a Catholic. Oh, the Jerusalem Post is Catholic? Oh, whatever.
Have you ever been in love in your life?
No. Not like romantically, no.
Yeah, never?
No.
You think that's part of the problem?
What's the problem?
Why you are the way you are.
Oh, and what's the way I am? What are you trying to say?
I've given people 2 hours of the way you are. You're unashamed about a lot of it.
Would you ever debate or talk to Fuentes again? Yeah, I probably would, I guess. It would just depend on the platform and what we're talking about.
I don't think I have a problem. I think I'm cheerful, boisterous. Look, unlike you, I'm willing to be a little provocative. Well, I guess you're willing to be provocative, but I'm willing to be very provocative, and I'm a free thinker. And I don't like to be tone policed. I don't like to be told about, people are going to tone police and play moral cop about you can't make this joke or you can't make this statement. And I think that's just about being intellectually open. I'm a believer in openness.
I completely agree. I think you should be perfectly free to express yourself exactly how you see fit. My problem is how you see fit with some of the things that you say. And we've been through a lot of them. And I think people who don't know you very well would have been shocked in parts and surprised in other parts. But in totality, they can see you for what you are. I think we've got a lot nearer to what the real Nick Fuentes is in the last 2 hours than we probably have seen from your other recent interviews. Would you agree?
No, I mean, the clip thing, we've done the clip thing. We've all seen the clip show. Everyone's seen the clips. You think you're the first one to do the ADL rap sheet. So here you said this, and then here you said that. I've been playing that game for 10 years. So this is honestly more of the same.
Usha Vance was born in San Diego, Limeo.
To tell you the truth.
Nick Fuentes, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Damn. Well. Okay, let me catch a few of these. I'm just curious.
The entire Piers interview mogging and clip farming. Clippers working overtime tonight.
Yeah, I had to clip farm it because, you know, what gives his appeal power is when you treat it like it's serious. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of people lose against Piers Morgan because they get psyched out and they treat it like they're...
Didn't you say earlier this year that you regret platforming him and other right-wing people like him and you'd never do it anymore? What? No. I think my platform of Nick, I think I was way more combative on that than I was with the fucking Daily Wire people. I think for the most part, I'm decently happy with most of the pushback I gave Nick on most things. I think we were pretty adversarial the whole time. It was pretty openly adversarial. But that's because he comes from like the world of online stuff and he's not used to the coddle factories that people like Knowles and Shapiro and Walsh have to exist in order for their fragile view of the world to be sustained for their audiences.
They're in a court of law. They're sort of like meek, and Piers is thundering from the dais like he's the judge and the jury and the executioner, giving these moral pronouncements. And I see a lot of people in the interview sort of shrink away, and they go, oh, okay. And you have to treat it with contempt. He's a tabloid journalist. He's a bad faith, sloppy tabloid journalist. And I don't say that to be, look, I like the guy. I thought it was a good interview. That's just what he is. And so you can't psych yourself out. You're not in a court of law. You're not on the record. You didn't swear an oath. You're not sitting before a judge. You're on a tabloid show. It's a circus. He brings on the biggest idiots, and then they yell and scream at each other. It's like it's a giant free-for-all. They bring on Rabbi Shmuley and some other person, and then they yell at each other for 2 hours while Piers collects the money, while Piers collects the advertising. And people go on the show, and they go, oh, I didn't mean what I said. Oh, I feel sorry. And so going into it, my strategy was, I have contempt. You have contempt for me. I have contempt for you. I'm not under oath. You're not a judge. This is a tabloid show. This is a joke. So that's where I saw a lot of people go wrong. Because I've seen people fail miserably on a show. It was because they kind of gave up the frame, and they're trying to win over Piers. Like I said, like he's the judge. They're pleading with him. You can't plead. It's like, there's a tabloid. You don't have moral authority over me. Who are you? So you turn it into you clip farm. You turn it into a silly thing. You have as much contempt for it as he has for you, and you match the energy.
Double $25.
Wow.
That's why people like me. It's social and cultural. It's political. It's not because the economy's bad. It's not bitter, angry people with no jobs. It's a broad spectrum. It's white people and non-white people. It's men and women. It's young people and it's old people. It's broke people and it's rich people. Because everybody is seeing what is happening to the country because it's all online. It's all on TikTok. It's all on X. It's all on Instagram Reels. And people are tired of it. All of it. The mass migration, the black crime, the Israeli control over our society, the Jewish oligarchs controlling our society. People are done. And what they like about me is I have the balls, or I am in a position, because I've already been canceled, that I can say these things openly, with no shame, with no fear, articulately, because I've been talking about these things for years, and I say them without shame or reservation. That's why people like me. And what's funny is that Piers brings me on to expose that I have all those views in his mind to a public that is ignorant of those things. But he's the ignorant one. He doesn't know that the public agrees with me. He doesn't know that there's nothing to expose. The clips he played on his show are clips that have gone mega viral many times over on Instagram and TikTok already. And they went viral because people retweeted them. They reshared them. They sent them in group chats and in private messages. And they laughed at those clips with their friends. And they said, this is hilarious. I agree. So what's the game? You're going to expose those clips? Those clips went viral on Instagram because people agree. You're going to expose them to an audience that's seen them? For what purpose? They're going to not like what they agree with? It doesn't make any sense. And that's just it. In 2025, calling somebody those names, shaming people, guilting people over that kind of stuff, that no longer has currency. It has no power. Times have changed. People have changed. The country...
I mean, it does still in a lot of society. I think he's heavily over-indexing on young people, which is fair. Most of his audience is going to be young people. But for like Gen Xers and everything, the people who still vote a lot and have a lot of political relevance, I think this still does kind of matter.
History has changed. We have gone over the hill with wokeness. And what the fuck did you think that meant? Because Piers did too. Piers pushed LGBT on children's education. He pushed the COVID lockdown and the vax mandate. He pushed the Israeli genocide in Gaza. He now says he's anti-woke. Well, Piers, what did you think it meant to be anti-woke? Did you think it meant LGB without the T? Did you think it meant no Muslims in the UK, but Indians come on in and replace us? Did you think it meant there's only two genders, but men and women are definitely the same? And they're completely equal and there's no meaningful differences? What exactly did you think that meant?
Appreciating watching Piers fail to pick up on the joke where you exaggerated the Holocaust toll. Truly a one-of-a-kind interview. You went hard as fuck.
Yeah. Well, and he thought he got me too.
There's a lesson in that. So he asked me, do you think 6 million died? And I kind of made a joke. I said, I think at least 6 million. I said, it's going up all the time. It could be as high as 10 million or maybe 100 times that. And maybe he didn't catch that. But you know what he said to that in response? He said, oh, well, your followers would be very interested to know that you don't believe that anymore. There's a lesson in that. Take a note. And the note is this. When you're in an interview like that with somebody that's bad faith or someone that's hostile to you, a lot of people make the mistake that they start to give concessions because they think that that will make the other person back off. So in that example, he said, do you think 6 million died? And an amateur, thinking that it would earn him favor, thinking that it would earn him laxity or leniency, might say, yeah, I think it might be 6 million. And and maybe come off of a radical position. He might think that he might get favor from the interviewer. But what does Piers do? It appeared like I did that. And what did he do? Did he say, oh, I'm glad you're moderating? Did he say, oh, I'm glad to hear that? Oh, you're not as bad as they say. I'm glad I got your real view.
Did he do that? No. No, he pressed harder. He saw that as weakness. And he took it and he tried to twist the knife and said, oh, well, your followers will be interested to know that. So you don't believe that? Oh, well, your follower. You see that? There's a lesson in this. Because you'll see this in a lot of interviews on touchy subjects like this. These unseasoned, amateurish people, they get interviewed or they go into a debate with someone who's liberal, someone who's hostile, someone who has an aggressive position. And a lot of people, they're, constitutionally weak or they're inexperienced and they plead. And they kind of argue with themselves. They try to give concessions. They try to compromise. They try to be agreeable. And they say, oh, no, I'm not racist. No, I'm not. I think it's 6 million, blah, blah, blah. And they think the person is going to say, oh, I got it wrong. You're not racist. That's a relief. That's great. They think that it's going to win them favor. And it never works that way because journalists hate you. Like journalists like Piers Morgan, they're trying to kill you. Like not literally, but figuratively, they're going for the kill shot. And they're trying to destroy.
Do you think he expected a combative interview or did he expect a Tucker style glaze? I'm sure he should have expected a combative one. Again, this is what Piers does to people. This is like the British gotcha hit piece assassination style interview thing, which he did. I mean, he did it to Nick. Nick must have expected it going in, I'm guessing.